this is our group. This is Choice Partners. These are all of our employees. There's 19 full-time employees, and we've got field reps also out in the field. But this is our group. We spend 100% of our time writing contracts, 100% of our time working with members, working with vendors. You know, we're probably a little different than a lot of co-ops out there that have you know, this kind of lead agency system or whatever, and it's a part-time gig for some of these folks. We are all dedicated. We're all government employees like you guys. We don't have bonuses, commissions. That's just what we do. We've got a very experienced staff. I know for a lot of Texas people, K through 12, I think out of 19, we've probably got, Joanne, 14, 15 that have some type of certification, like a TASBO certification or one of the other certifications for procurement or business officials or whatever. So we're clued in and tied into a lot of things you guys are doing all the time. There we go. Okay, this is a training agenda. What we're looking to do today, I'm going to have this intro. Probably I'll try and wrap up in the next couple of minutes. We'll also have a couple of sections. We'll talk about legal requirements. We'll have another person up talking about that. And then one of our food representatives, Laura, will talk about some of the food and cafeteria contracts. Then we'll kind of talk to you a little bit about how to navigate the website, how to find things. You may use our website a little bit. You may really not use it, but it's a great tool to help you. I want to ask a question just internally. How many people in here use Get a Quote? Get a Quote. Not you. People in our group are raising their hands. Peanut gallery back there. I didn't see a whole lot of hands. Well, you'll learn a little bit about that. It's a tool that is very convenient and very easy to use, and it helps you get paperwork from this side of your desk, the inbox to the outbox. Helps you get paperwork in and out of your desk, and it's very useful. Once you use it, you won't want to go back and not use it, basically. Then we'll talk, Stephen Kinder will talk about job order contracting. We have a couple of facilities people. I know we have a number online. You know, what's maintenance, what's construction, what's allowed, what's not allowed. How does the state of Texas, or how do a lot of government people define construction versus maintenance? It doesn't make total sense, but if you want to stay legal and compliant and do things the right way, we tell you how to do it the right way. So that, and then we'll have closing, and we'll try and be out on time today. All right. So does this, I guess I'm addressing a lot of local internal people here, but does anybody understand what we're talking about in this little triangle? Kind of what's going on, why cooperatives exist, or how we exist? What it really does is it kind of explains there's three parties. There's a purchasing cooperative. There's the governmental entity, which is what we call a member. All of our vendors, we'll call you guys customers, obviously. And then there's the awarded vendor themselves. So what happens is before any of you folks in the audience or online can use our contracts, you either sign an interlocal agreement, or you note that if you're outside the state of Texas, it's only required inside the state of Texas. Outside, there's an option. If you're outside the state of Texas, we find the vast majority of people, not all, but a majority, will just check a box on our website saying that we're an out-of-state entity. We don't require a formal interlocal agreement. You become a member instantaneously. So that's basically kind of what we'd call the interlocal agreement, or saying that you want to use our contracts as a governmental entity or a charter school or not-for-profit, things like that. And that's executed allowing you to use our contracts. Then we go to the vendors. We do exactly what you guys do. We issue an RFP or a CSP, a solicitation. We follow all the steps required, not only by the state. We try and write the contracts as general as we can. Every contract we have, except for one, is federally compliant. As far as I know, we have some nutrition folks in there with FDA and ARM Chapter 17, all those lovely words that everybody likes to talk about in the food side of the world. And so we have a very robust contract, and we will select and award contracts, and then you members are able to use those awarded contracts. There's some other items on there, and actually Stephen will probably get a little more into that when he does his presentation. I don't want to have you hear some of these things twice. So one of the things is you guys mostly know us as Choice Partners. Well, it's funny because sometimes local people call us Harris County or call us HCDE or whatever. We're part of our paychecks. We're part of something called Harris County Department of Education, which was founded in the 1890s. The state of Texas has, I think it's 254 counties. At one time, there were 254 county school districts in the state of Texas. They were here before any of the Cy-Fairs or these Pasadenas or Kleins or any of these school districts existed. And they've all gone by the wayside. 253 out of the 254. There's one left, which is us. And now we have, I guess, about 1,200 ISDs within the state of Texas. And we're the only one left. And we have a number of different functions that we still perform, including HCDE being a taxing entity. It's a governmental entity. Like I said earlier, we're government employees. We don't pay bonuses and commissions for sales guys or field people or whatever. You know, we're basically just like you guys. We use our own contracts, which you probably won't find with a lot of the co-ops out there that are the lead agency that write all the contracts and use them. So we have a vested interest in doing them right and making sure that they're legal and compliant and competitive. So that's a little bit about what HCDE is. And then I mentioned there are a number of divisions. I'll just point out our division on the bottom, because I think I'm a few minutes over. Our division on the bottom where the circle is, Choice Partners. We are one of the divisions. I believe there's over 20 divisions within HCDE. And there are some major divisions on the top, and I'll just real quickly cover those, and then we'll move on to the next section here. We have adult education where they do GEDs and vocational training and things like that for adult learners. Case for Kids, a lot of after-school activities for kids. Head Start, obviously that's self-defining 3 to 5 year old kids before they get into kindergarten. Special schools, we have schools that we have students in that are for either special needs or behavioral disciplines, or they have dependency issues, things like that. Those are the kind of schools that we have, and we work with a lot of the school districts around. And therapy services, as I mentioned, Harris County, I think we're the largest county in the state of Texas and probably the 3rd largest in the country, something like that. But out of all the schools that have a therapist on campus, about 55% or so are supplied by HCDE, whether it's a speech or I don't even know what the other ones are, the motor skills, physical therapists, things like that. I think there's musical therapists out there, but we have a very robust division within that. Then we have a number of other divisions there, and you see that Choice Partners is one of them. So that's a little bit about who we are, kind of the structure, if you will, of HCDE, Harris County Department of Ed, and then Choice Partners. Now, we're not, a lot of the other services might be locally focused. We're in virtually every state. I believe last count, we're probably 45, 46 out of the 50 states. So we've got activity everywhere. We've got members everywhere, a number of them on the line. I think we've got about a dozen or so that are attending this one, and we've got vendors national. So that's a little bit about who we are. And we're going to get into a little bit more of the details now. And we're going to have Christy Nichols, one of our contract managers, come up and talk to you a little bit about legal requirements.
Good morning, everyone. Thank y'all for joining us. It's great to see everybody's faces and be back in the offices and having these type of meetings. I appreciate it. And for everyone online, I'm Christy Nichols. I've been with Choice Partners for a little over 6 years now. Prior to this, I was coordinator of purchasing at Galena Park ISD. And then before that, I was at Goose Creek ISD in the purchasing department. So I kind of know, if you're from the purchasing department, I feel you. I know how it is with all the legal requirements that change every legislative year whenever they're going out and having to tell us we have to do the 1295s. Now we don't have to do the 1295s. We have to, so we kind of, we sympathize with you here whenever we're writing those. But I am going to go through some of the legal requirements that we do follow. When Choice Partners goes out for an RFP, prior to that, we do whenever you want to, I'm sorry, let me back up. Whenever you want to become a member, you have to do an interlocal agreement with, Choice Partners in the state of Texas. If you're outside the state of Texas, it's not required unless your governing body recommends that or requires that. That's what we call an ILA, and we do follow the Chapter 7 Texas Code 791, which talks about the interlocal agreement within the state. For you to be able to utilize our contracts, it is free for your district. There's never an annual fee, a membership fee, or any kind of participation fee that you have to pay for that. Your government body is responsible for reaching out to the vendors to get the quotes that you would like, to make sure whenever you do get your products in, that everything is what you ordered in the manner that you ordered it. Then we do ask that you send us a copy of your purchase order. That assists you in the future if you're going through an audit. Let's say you're no longer at your district, and you contact and go, our purchasing department, I know, made a purchase from you last year or 2 years ago. Do you have any record of that? And we're able to go back and pull the contract for you associated with the PO, associated with the usage report, to show your auditors that it was all in compliance to the law. And as Jeff said, we did come up with a few questions. Has anybody in here developed an RFP? We have several raising their hands. Is it easy? It is for you? What's easy about it for you? Okay. For the people online, she said that they use a boilerplate and templates to be able to go off of. And what was difficult for you? Like one of the difficult things that you found with it? Everything. She said everything. I would have to agree with you. Being able to write the RFP, the main body of the RFP, the boilerplate, that one is typically easy because it's your terms and conditions don't typically change, things like that. But as far as your scope and spec, those are very specific to your job or for your district that you're doing. And so it can be very time consuming having to do the research for that, having to get the advertisement for 2 weeks and then leave it open for 3 to 4 weeks, and then do the closing of the bid, the evaluation, not only the money that it costs to advertise and the hours that you're paying for your staff to have to go through that process. Choice Partners has done it for you. We've already gone through the competitive RFP process. We've done our independent estimate up front. After we go through it, we do our cost price analysis. Everything is available for you on our website, and due diligence, which we're going to go over that in a little bit as well. But we've already done the hard work, done the legwork for you, taken the headache away from you. If there is a vendor that we don't have on a contract, and you're like, this commodity would be really good, I would love to see this person on there, just email us. We always take recommendations like that seriously, because if we have you asking, there may be 3 other districts that are also asking for the same type of a service or a product. And so it's very good to reach out, and we'll go over in a little bit as far as our contact information for everybody at our department as well. Ooh, sorry. In the state of Texas, we are the most stringent on our policies and procedures issued by the state. Like I said earlier, we do an independent estimate. We seek out competitive bids. We also go out to underutilized hub minority vendors. We have a list that we send out to all of the Chamber of Commerce's in multiple states. They put those on their website, and that's how you're able to also fulfill that for your district. If they say, did you reach out and get responses from hub vendors? Yes, we did. And then, so when it goes on that state's website, those vendors that they have are able to come to our link and be able to respond to our RFPs. Like I said, we also do the cost price analysis. We take it to our governing board for approval with the interlocal agreement that you have with us. That's how you're able to get to the contracts that we have. Okay. When federal funds are involved, what are the vendor's obligations for record retention? Do you think They have to follow, you think that they're going to follow what we follow at your district for records retention? You don't think they will? Well, when federal funds are expended by us ourselves, HCDE uses our contracts, or a member, the vendor certifies. So they filled out a form already saying that they're, as part of the EGRA form, saying that they will comply with records retention, which in the for federal funds is for 3 years. So they've already agreed to it, to be able to keep those records. We also do have them, their signature on file as far as them keeping those records as well, if you do have to go back for anything like that. So sometimes that's stuff that you may not really know is been part of those templates that we have, that we give out to our vendors. Yes. You mean federal funds? Do federal funds have their own stipulations? It says the 2 CFR 200, vendor further certifies that the vendor will retain all records as required by that 2 CFR for a period of 3 years for grantees or sub-grantees. It's set in stone. Yeah.
It can vary. Like if y'all are doing any construction project, she can repeat it, but it's from the time everything's closed out. Like 3 years. It's not from the time it's secured.
So when everything is paid and the PO's closed out, the work's been done, been ordered, that's when the 3 years starts. Okay. You're welcome. Thank you. And if anybody has any questions throughout, please feel free to raise your hand. We do encourage that. So this is what we spoke about a moment ago about the due diligence. Whenever you log in as a member, which hopefully everyone here has a member login. If not, we will go through that whenever we go through the navigating the website of how to go ahead and register for a member ID. But this is what the landing page looks like for our vendors. It has their contract name, their contract number, and the dates of their contract. It has the contract manager's name, which for this one is Michael Robles, his contact information. Then there's a link to the vendor's website as well, that if you need to go straight to their website and look at some pricing or look at what they have or a contact out there, it's also available on this landing page. This tells you if they're a hub vendor or not. And then the due diligence, it is downloaded in a zip file. So the items that are part of our due diligence, this is also available in our FAQs on our website. But this is the list that we have for our, the way that we file them out there. So it's your IED, which is the beginning of the whole process, down to the award. And then we also do all the renewal letters. Does anybody have any information or questions about this zip drive? Okay, the question was, are there multiple ways you can log in as a member, or does each entity only have one? Your entity will have their one, but they can have as many users in there as they would like. So if you register, if you go in there and you can pull up a list of our current members, you find your district and then you sign up as a user if you're not already in there. Some districts only like to have one username and password. So I would get with whoever opened the account with Choice Partners to find out if you can have, but we don't care how many members are on there. I mean, y'all can all sign up, because I think for us, it's a lot of tools on there that are valuable to you. And here's another question. Who do I contact at Choice Partners if I would like someone to review a quote that I received from an awarded CP vendor? Who would y'all think to reach out to? The contract manager. Yeah, over that contract. Let's say Labatt gives you a quote. You're going to want to go out to the food side on the website and look and see who, if it's Laura, Melissa, or Tricia that you would need to send that to. We encourage you to send us those quotes, because what we do is we verify the pricing, we verify the product or the service that vendor was awarded can actually be done on that contract number. We make sure that the quote has the contract number on it. For auditing purposes, it's for part of that paper trail. The auditors like to have it on the quote, the contract number on the quote, on the PO, on the invoice, and on the payment. That way it's so easy for them just to see it and follow along. So whenever you do it this way, you contact us with it, we're able to verify that information for you. And if there's a discrepancy there, then we reach out to the vendor, find out what the discrepancy, get that worked out. They'll either issue you a new quote or everything's good to go. And we send it back and let you know everything is good. Does anybody have any questions on that part of it? The quote? Okay. And these are our different categories that we have commodities in: our food, cafeteria, technology, supplies, products, services, and facilities. I think that is all from me today. We're going to give it over to Laura Spray from the food. Yes, ma'am. Mhm.
They still require us to go to our department and then we call it, it's called a project. We understand the derivative agreement is to we added services to that. And so then we kind of do our own standalone. Have you heard something like that?
Like a supplemental contract?
Maybe like a supplemental
Okay.
contract.
Okay.
But what our legal department is doing is they're pretty much duplicating what you've already done at this process. So I'm just trying to understand how we can get it to our legal department. But it's not required. It's another conversation with somebody else. Maybe it's another audience.
Well, for the people online, her question is, her legal department requires that they basically repeat the process that Choice Partners has done with vetting the vendors and going through the RFP process. They have their own forms, and she was wanting to know if there were any suggestions that we or anybody in the room may have to kind of get around that, to where they're not having to do double the work. Is that right? All right, since Stephen walked up, I'm guessing he has something to say about it.
Well, and I actually have two things to say, because I want to add on to where you said that Choice Partners did all the legal requirements. And the first thing there is that we have done all the legal requirements that we can do. So y'all probably have additional hub requirements, and yours are probably different. We don't have them where we're at. And so there are additional things that you will need to do on your end beyond our contract. Also, when using federal funds, you have to do some of your own paperwork. Like we do the conflict of interest for our board, but you still have to do your own. But
So when you're doing a conflict of interest for your board, you're not doing it for the vendor themselves?
yes, but they state whether or not they have a conflict with our board of directors. They do not state if they have a conflict of interest with your board.
And that's
Right. So there's certain things, cost price analysis. Y'all still need to do that when you're doing federal funds. So there are additional steps. Don't think that we've blanketly taken care of absolutely everything for you. There could be additional steps that you need to take. Now, as far as the supplemental agreement, you have to understand that in cooperative purchasing, we wrote this contract to cover any and all governmental entities and nonprofits, not yours specifically. And so there are additional requirements that y'all may have that we didn't cover. And I'll go over this more in my presentation later, but the easiest example is job order contracting and construction. Cooperatives, none of them know what your prevailing wages are. They don't know if you're going to hold retainage. So there are, they don't know if you have additional COVID protocols or you have additional insurance requirements beyond the minimum required in our state. So a supplemental agreement is actually a really great idea because it also covers your specific scope of work. So all cooperative contracts are written IDIQ, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity. We don't know what you're going to order, how much you're going to order, or who you're going to order it with, right? Your supplemental agreement will cover all of that. So it is a good idea. No, a supplemental agreement is great because it covers anything specific to you, but it's not a complete rebid. You don't have to go out and advertise. You don't have to replicate anything in our contract. It's just if y'all have more stringent requirements or things that we kind of blanketly did that are specific to you, like that prevailing wage schedule. We say when required, you must follow their prevailing wages, but your prevailing wages may be different than yours. Maybe you require Davis Bacon and maybe you've done your own in-house. We don't know. Yeah, I'm going to cover that in the jock piece because that's only specific to jock. What she's talking about is in job order contracting specifically, you have to have a single document with both party signatures on it when it's a supplemental agreement. So a PO and a proposal kind of married together doesn't constitute a job order contract. And that's actually defined in statute. The same document. Yeah. And that I know that's specific to job order contracting, but it's probably a good practice to implement.
Are there any more questions or comments on that?
I was just gonna say the easiest way, and you can restate it, easiest way to explain kind of your question. Let's just make it up, say our general liability or our contract. You know, we try and we have to kind of cater to what might be the easiest.
So he's asking with the general, if the general liability is $1 million on our insurance and another entity has what, and he goes, oh, we don't need one that high. Those are two things that you might have to have a separate information for, separate contract for. These are ones that HCDE has, that Choice Partners has done for HCDE. So you'll still have to have your board or if your legal advisors request additional information, then you can get that. And they're still having discussion on that. So we'll let that keep going for a couple more minutes. And okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Laura.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Laura Spray. I am the food contract manager with Choice Partners. I've been here 5 years, a little over 5 years. Before that, I was at Aldine ISD. I worked in the child nutrition department there, which is kind of how I got into food service procurement. I just have a few slides I'm going to go over, kind of touch on our little food group. There's 4 of us in the group. It's me, my boss, Trisha Presa-Giacomo. We have Melissa Wilder, who's our food contract coordinator, and then Emily Maldonado, excuse me. So all of our contracts for food touch anything that you would need in a cafeteria to provide food to child nutrition. So we have everything from like commercial mainline distributors, which is going to be like your Labatt's, Gordon Food Service, Cisco. We have ice cream contracts. We have pizza contracts. We have food equipment, which is a big one because everybody needs equipment. We even have like technology for food service. So software and, any components you would need for point of sale. So those are kind of some of our food contracts. We have our own little food group because not only do we have to, fall under all of the requirements that you guys do if you're in the purchasing department, but we also have USDA and TDA that we're getting funds from. So we have to meet all of their requirements for purchasing as well. Okay, so speaking of that, all of our contracts are audited by TDA. So they look at our contracts first and they make sure that they're compliant. And then when they go into the schools and they're doing the audits, they will then look at you guys as more specific documents. So maybe your invoices or things like that. So all of our contracts are audited by TDA when we work with them about auditing. All of our documents that you would need for an audit are going to be posted on the website. So I'll show you that in a second, but we have a whole section that's just due diligence files. So this is going to be everything that you would need from the cost price analysis, 1295s, anything like that is going to be available on our website. So it's very easy to get on there to download for your audits. Every year we do a food show. It's always typically in October. This year it's going to be October 13th. We have it at the Humboldt Civic Center. It's a lot of fun. We usually have about 130 vendors there. A few hundred child nutrition staff come. We have students come, taste test all the food. You guys should come. We'll send out lots of information about it next year. We always have a fun theme. If anybody has any good ideas, let us know. Because we're always trying to come up with something good. Some new contracts that we have coming up for this year are not necessarily new, but maybe being redone because they're at their term limits, is the commercial food distributor. This is a big one. I mentioned them just a second ago, like your mainline distributors. All the schools use these because they have to get their food delivered to them. We are putting out a chemical products. So this is going to be a lot of the cleaning supplies that schools need. We also have, we're redoing direct delivery of snacks and beverages. This is going to provide a lot of things like maybe for concessions or things that come direct from the manufacturers that don't go through a distributor. We have restaurant branded food delivery. So this is going to be like your pizza delivery companies. So, you know, Domino's is in some schools or Papa John's, things like that. And then also we're doing our technology products for food service. And I kind of mentioned that one. It's software, point of sale equipment, things like that. So this is kind of what's coming up for the next school year that we're working on right now. So we have our own little food section of the website because we are so special. So whenever you're logging in, if you do want to go directly to the food side to get those due diligence files, you know, to see anything we have on there, if you need to get access to commodity processing information like the calculators, the SEPDS. If you're not in food service, you probably don't know what that is, but so you can check the little checkbox there that says log into food only, and that'll take you directly to the food side of the website. And then this is our dashboard for the food side. So we have our contact information over there. And then we have a little tabs for everything that you need, our current vendors. We have a special tab just for commodity processing, because if you are in food service, you know, like what an animal that is and how much information you need for it. We have our pricing for all of our vendors on there. The inactive contract due diligence, that's going to be where you find due diligence files for contracts that maybe have expired. So for instance, when you're getting audited, you get audited on the previous school year. Well, that contract may not be active anymore because it's been redone. So that's where you'll find that information. Resources, this is just going to be everything, child nutrition links, USDA, TDA, any kind of information like that that can be helpful. Whoops. And then child nutrition labels, that's going to be where you find all of your nutrition information for menu planning purposes, for auditing, for things like that. The procurement annual review tab, this is where you're going to find all the due diligence files for active contracts. So for contracts that are currently active, this is where you're going to find a lot of the information you need. We also have a little like what we kind of call a cheat sheet for if you're getting audited by TDA in there. It provides a lot of the information you need when you're filling out those initial surveys that TDA has you do when you're getting your procurement review. And then the Buy American provision, this is where we just keep all of our Buy American documents, which is another requirement you need to have for TDA, for auditing. So that's kind of our food side in a nutshell. Does anybody have any questions? I'm sorry, what'd you say? He asked if we have a hybrid for our food service contracts. With our like distributor contract, they do deliver to the specific sites. Yes. Yeah, so like our distributor contract, he's asking if it meets like the TDA requirements for temperatures, key drops, things like that. Yes, it does meet that. We have that in our contracts. And then we also have our distributors work with all of our districts, so like just the two of them, to determine what their needs are, when their drop-offs are going to be, where their drop-offs are, their delivery dates, things like that. Does that answer your question? Okay. All right, any other questions? Okay, well, thank you so much. And I'm going to Let Joanne.
Okay, so first what I want to do, and for the people that are online, I want to show everybody where this is going to be. We have a lot of information under this About Us tab. For the school districts, you're going to need a compliance letter every year. That compliance letter is under the FAQs. Once you go to your FAQs, you will find that compliance letter under one of these things. I think it's like number 4 or number 5. There it is right there. I do want to give you a Best Buy for Business is the only contract on our website that does not follow federal law. Other than that, we have everybody else is federally procured. So we're in good, but your letter is going to be right here. Anything else on Edgar is going to be here. You're going to have any questions that may be answered, whatever, and then you're going to have the order of the due diligence folder, which they gave you in a previous slide. So all of that is showing right there for you under About Us. But for this presentation, and for those of you online, I already have it up here on this March 30th member presentation. If you click on this member presentation section over here, this is going to bring up the PowerPoint. And you'll be able to go back into the PowerPoint. You can follow along from there if you don't want to do the speaker view, or if you want to revert back to it or whatever. Probably by tomorrow, I'll have the YouTube video up that you'll be able to click into, and you can give to any of your necessary participants or necessary colleagues or whatever, to be able to show them exactly what's going on if they couldn't make it. If you have any other questions under this, this is just a lot of our information about procurement processes and how we do it, why we do it, and how we get there. But what I'm here to show you is what happens whenever you get behind the windows. So when you get behind our window, so when you get to the member login, you're simply going to come here and member login. For those of you who do not have a member login, you're going to come down here to the bottom where it says set up a new account. When you go into set up a new account, of course, I'm pretending I'm online, aren't I? When you go in to set up a new account, your entity name will be on the very top line. When you try to type that in, your computer is going to take over. Don't let it. Delete it. Start typing your entity, let the drop down flow, and then click on your entity. If you don't, it's going to tell you you don't have the right entity in that line. Okay, then fill out the rest of the information that's there with your name and address and username and password and all that. And then you'll be able to get in with the member login. If you already have one, just put in your username, put in your password, and then move on to the next screen. Whenever you get all that done, give us a few minutes whenever you do that login, because I may not be sitting at my desk. Jan is my backup. Maybe she's not sitting at her desk, but we're trying. We'll get there as fast as we can. So just give us a minute and we'll get in there and try to get you approved. If you've put in your Gmail account, I'm not going to approve it. If you put in your school district address or your city address or whatever, then you'll get approved. So we have these people that are throwing in these Gmails and I don't know who they are. I don't know where they are. I don't know where they came from. So I refuse them and they're not getting in there. So remember, you're using your city account, district account, whatever account it may be. So once you get there, you're going to come into this member dashboard. This member dashboard is what is really behind the curtain for Choice Partners. So it gives you a lot of information as far as get a quote, who our current vendors are, what the contact list. Contact list actually gives you 2 options. It gives you a PDF of all of our vendors, or it gives you an Excel spreadsheet of all of our vendors. You can sort and everything else. Yes.
We had a question, wanting you to explain what that compliance letter is.
The question is what is the compliance letter used for? Normally, whenever you're doing federal funds, FEMA's going to ask you for that compliance letter for a school district, child nutrition, something like that, because they want to know, is the cooperative compliant with 2 CAP for 200? Okay. If you don't know about it, then you probably haven't come across the need for it in your FEMA documents. Okay, so back to the member dashboard. The contract list is there for you on 2 options. It's updated on a monthly basis. So every time we have a board, these lists will change. Okay, except in March. We don't have anything in March. We kind of skip over it as if it's not there. Thank God we get a month to catch up. Then you can go into food from here. If you logged in and you forgot to check that little food box, you can go into food by this little box here. Otherwise, you can also go into the supply catalog. I'll kind of go into that a little bit later because that is specific line items. Oh, I get to go into it right now. So we have a supply catalog with has over 1,100 line items. All of these are line item bid. So the winning bidders are normally the lowest bidder for that item. So you'll want to kind of cruise through there because it's probably your most used items that you use around your facilities. So your toilet papers, your mops, your buckets, your just anything that you, paper, your whatever, paper by the truckload is on there. So whatever you normally get, that's going to be the lowest item that we can possibly get it for. So it's something worth looking at. You can at least compare it to what you're getting and see if there is a deal or a bargain there. Because I know pricing right now is just going through the roof. Everybody is having the problem because everything's going up by 33% just by blinking your eyes. You know, so check it out. You can go through it. It's pretty easy to navigate, just as if you're going to a different magazine. You just check which boxes you want to go visit and see if it's paper products, janitorial products, athletics products, whatever it might be. You can go and you can look at it in our supply catalog. Whenever you get in and you're going to available vendors, you're going to see what we call our due diligence. The due diligence is probably the most important factor for each one of our vendors. It gives you the information that we have on file for that vendor. So it's going to give you their contract number, which every vendor out there wants a contract number. And I have to tell them you don't have a contract, so there is not a number for you. Yeah, but I have to sell to the city. They want my number. I'm sorry, you're not an awarded vendor. You have registered to be a supplier, but you haven't gone through the procurement process. The procurement process is probably the most important process, and you have to go through it. So whenever you come to this page and you see their name, you know they're good. It's that easy. If they're not on there, they don't have a contract. If they're on there, you can bet they've been through it, okay? So it gives you their information. It also gives you our contract manager for that contract. So if you have any questions who our contract manager might be for, this one happens to be Construction Masters of Houston. They were our top performer last year. They started out as a small company and has just gone gangbusters since they have joined Choice Partners. So you guys are the help for all of that for them also. But you get down here and you find out exactly as a buyer, what are they approved for? Make sure you pay attention to what they're approved for on this contract, because it'll let you know that idea of, oh, well, I can't use them for janitorial services. No, I don't think so. They're more for construction. So it just lets you know whether what they're telling you, because a vendor will do anything for you, right? They don't ever say, no, I can't do it. They say, yes, I can do that. Well, this lets you know whether they can do it by the contract, okay? And so then whenever you get down here to the due diligence, you'll be able to click this little blue button, and then all of the information just appears. All of those documents that purchasing wants to know, that has to see, that the buyers are asking you questions, that the lawyers are asking questions on, all of that information becomes visible for you. Now, if one of those files doesn't work for you, let me know. It is a zip file. So most everybody can open zip files. And so then once you have the zip file open, then boom, it'll give you all of those documents. And they're pretty well labeled so that you can kind of tell what they are. Because when we put the IED in there, we have to do that whenever we get the very beginning document. And so the very beginning RFP will be in there. But if it changes through an amendment, then the amendment will be put up there after that, okay? It just kind of flows with the process of what we're having to do. Yes. not to our contract. So what he's asking is if we want to do an amendment to a contract such as abatement, would we have to do an amendment? That would not be on our side. Construction, RFP, abatement can be done by a full-blown job. But there are certain processes in there that may include professional services. So you kind of have to watch what you're needing and what you're doing as to whether you have to pull in the third party or not. Okay? But that would be on your side with the supplemental, and Stephen will go through all of that whenever we get to that part of it. Okay? Next thing is the get a quote button. We call this our easy button. Our easy button is right there for you. I don't want to make it too easy. We're getting too many quotes where they just want to ask everybody the same question. Now, I understand trying to get a quote and trying to find the lowest bidder. Trust me, I understand. But there's too many that everybody is just selecting all. And you're more than welcome to, but I'm just saying, I'm trying to get you to the most available, most willing to answer these questions, because some of these vendors are going to say, oh, that person always asks for it and I never win it, so I'm just not going to pay attention to that person anymore. You know, it'll happen. It'll happen. So you have to watch out. Don't be bugging the same vendor too many times with never using them. And it may be just because they're too high. I don't know, but it just doesn't give them the warm fuzzies whenever they answer you on 30 different quotes and then you don't ever use them or talk to them or call them back or whatever. You get my drift? Is that too rude? I don't mean it to be rude, but yeah, just respect your vendors as much as we would like for them to respect get a quote, because this is the hottest lead that they could possibly have, because they know that this person has a need and they have a need for now. They're supposed to answer these within 48 hours. It may not be, especially in the food side of it, they can't possibly do some of those quotes in 48 hours. But what they need to do or be able to do is get back to you, letting you know, hey, I'm working on it. I got questions. Can you answer these questions? Whatever that the case may be there, then you can possibly do that for them and answer it. They can get back to you and you can answer those questions and then they'll get back to you. They'll probably give you a 7-day, 10-day, whatever the case may be that, hey, I'll get back to you. And then they'll go through it. So once you get all that taken care of, as far as you need to know the contract name. So whenever you first looked up Construction Masters, maybe you want to quote against them. So I want Construction Masters, but I need 2 more quotes to go with them. So what you do up here in this top box is pick the name of their title. So their title for is Construction Jock. Okay. So you would click the Construction Jock in the top part. When it brings up the vendors, it brings up all the vendors that have a Construction Jock. Well, some of them may be in your area, some of them may not. So you can either pick and choose, or you can do a select all. It's up to you, but construction gets pretty big. So I would suggest looking for people that are in your region, your area, your deal, to get the fastest results. You've got statewide and you've got nationals that'll also answer, but just make sure that you're not using and abusing, if you will, please. Then you put in your product information down there and let them know what is the project. If you have a specific scope and spec, you can always attach it down here at the bottom under choose the file. It takes up to a 10 meg file. So if you have more than one, you may have to reduce it, or you may have to figure a way to get it under 10 meg if you have like engineered drawings or anything like that. Okay. So then once you do that, then you fill out the name and the email. Now the name and the email is very important, because if you're not the project manager, you may be just a buyer and you just may want information off of what this project can be. Maybe you want the project manager's name here and email address rather than yours, because you know nothing about the project. But this is strictly up to you and how y'all do business and how you want it answered, and whether you want more on your plate or less on your plate. Let somebody else worry about it. Just my thought. Okay, and then the last box down here is the product need by date. That is the actual need date. So my drop dead, fall out of bed, gotta have it is gonna be that day. Okay, so don't put one that's just a month out because they're gonna say, well, there's no way I can finish that project in a month, you know, depending on project. But that's what that date is for, is that's, I need it for the new school year, so I'll need it by July the 15th, but July 30th, whatever it might be. Then that helps them know whether they can get that chore done within that amount of time, okay? Any questions? We're good? Okay, under About Us, we also have a tab that's called Events. This is where we're going, what we're doing, and where we're gonna be. So if you have any wherewithals, if City of Houston's going somewhere and wants to see if Choice Partners are there, all you have to do is look up here, hit on the drop down, shows you all these places at which we're going, and you can look and see if we're gonna be there too. And then you can come see us, because we got goodies. Everybody wants goodie, right? There's our frequently asked questions. It's under your FAQ. So I already kind of went over that. So you don't really need to know too much more about that. This is the vendor contact information. So when you are logged in and you do see that due diligence folder down on that file, you're also going to see over on the right-hand side, the contact info for your vendor. Now, this is the person that knows the most about the Choice Partners contract, supposedly. So whenever you have their name and address, it doesn't matter who your local dealer may be. You may still want to call this #1 salesperson just so they can get with your local dealer and you can ensure that you're getting the correct pricing that is really on there, okay? Because local dealer may not know it, right? You never know. And then we have staff contact information under that FAQ also. It's the very bottom. I'm trying to hide it so nobody call it, but I'm just kidding. It's contact info. It's got everybody's name, everybody's email, everybody's address, phone number. All you have to do is click on a name, email comes up, hit that email, shoot it to us, we'll take care of it. If that's not fast enough for you, there's the phone number, pick up the line, call them direct. They're there to help you. If they're not, I'll get on to them. But we're here to help. We want you to use the contract. We want to make it easy. We want to be there for you whenever you do call. Sometimes I might be on the horse, but I'll answer it. Just call me. Deb knows, don't you, Deb? You've called me out there in the horse pasture. But just call me. We'll take care of you. We're doing the best that we can with what we've got. We've got new field reps on here now. They're more in our northern regions of Texas right now. But if you're out of state, you just call me. We'll figure out something. Even if it's another Zoom call, we can talk to you face to face. With that being said, the next part of our presentation is going to be JOC. If you don't want to stay for JOC, please do the survey now. We do CEUs. So for anybody that wants CEUs, you need to email. And you can email any one of these people on this list. Of course, I'm that first one, so I might be the one you pick. That's okay. It's not a problem. And I'll make sure that you get your CEUs and you get your TASBO's credits, okay? But other than that, if anybody needs to leave, it's okay. Do we have food yet or no? No? Am I too early? Am I good to go? Yes, ma'am. Okay.
When we use your contract,
Yes, ma'am.
you want, you need.
When you use our contracts, do we need the PO? We would absolutely love to have the PO. And the reason for that is we cannot assure you that you are in compliance with the contract if we don't see what that PO is for, okay? That also lets us know you're using it, that the vendor's using it. So when the vendor reports it, we can then look at it. We may call you and ask you, how much of this PO have you expended? Because sometimes you're going to make POs that are help me. blank POs, thank you, that have a blanket on it, and it may be for $50,000 worth, but y'all may only use 20. So we're gonna have to call you and ask you, hey, on this PO, how much did y'all spend? Okay, perfect, we love it, thank you very much, and that sort of thing. But yes, we would love it. It goes, we have a mailbox for it. The mailbox for it is actually e-catalog. So ECATALOG at choicepartners.org. Most everything you do within Choice Partners, the easy email is going to be at choicepartners.org. Everybody on our list, unless they're not part of Choice Partners and we have them outside of it or something like that, is going to be if you know, oh, that was Monique. All you have to do is type Monique at choicepartners.org and you got her. Okay. So our email should be easy for you in case anybody needs you. Any questions? Yes. We would love to have a reporting from the entity on the usage. No, not yet. We're working on it. For the entities that do a whole lot of POs, you don't have to send us every PO. You can send us a report at the end of the month that simply states who your vendor was and who spent the money. Most of the time, your e-finance software can spit that out in an Excel format. If you just send us that on a monthly basis, we would absolutely give you something for being so sweet to us. You know, because we can't be here if it's not for our vendors and if it's not for our members. So we kind of depend on that little 1-2% admin to be able to do what we do and be able to train you and feed you and give you and do whatever. So and it saves the vendor time and money also. So if we can get those reports from our members, oh my gosh, it would be wonderful. And we do get it from certain people already. So I won't try to name them because I don't want to misname anybody. But yes, we do get quite a bit of usage reports that hopefully make it easier rather than having to send every PO. Answer your question? Okay, so that was usage reports versus POs. Okay, anything else? I don't hear a lot of commotion over there, so I'm going to introduce Mr. Stephen. Oh, sorry.
We have a vendor that donated a door prize today for the people that are attending live in person, not virtual.
Sorry.
So this is from Butler Business Products. They're awarded on a lot of our different commodity contracts. So Joanne, if you could pick a
So-
number between 1 and 50.
11. So we have a door prize for the people that are here. Sorry you missed it. What can I say? That we're going to give it out to Deb Stewart. Whoa, Deb Stewart from the city of Houston actually got her a new bundle. Yeah, I didn't know what thing. It's just number 11 was the number I wore at Texas A&M and everywhere else. So that's it, number 11. Okay, do we have any other questions? For me, anyway? Did I do good or bad or indifferent or y'all bored? Y'all want to wake up? Y'all need to go to the restroom? Okay. Here's Stephen Kendrick, Senior Manager, Facilities Director.
Good morning. How are y'all? I need y'all awake because this content goes into a lot of depth. It can be very dry. I'm going to do my best to make it entertaining for you with some examples and stories. But let's be honest, it's very dry. As she stated, my name is Stephen Kendrick. I'm Senior Manager of Facilities Planning here at Harris County Department of Education. Just to give you a little bit about me, I actually started off my first 9 years working for a general contractor. I was a licensed electrician. I ended up jumping into building homes for a short period of time and then went to work for a school district in their maintenance and operations department. I did that for 6 years prior to coming to Harris County Department of Education. Choice Partners actually recruited me to be their contract compliance specialist for construction contracts. And then about 3 years into that, Harris County Department of Ed moved me up into the facility side. And so I kind of have my hands in multiple pots, but so that you understand the importance of this, I've been the vendor, I've been the facility manager, and I've been on the purchasing side and the legal compliance side. Does that make sense? So I've sat in all three roles and I can relate to all three roles. A little bit about what I'm going to cover today. First of all is why job order contracting, maintenance versus construction, and why those two concepts are so important. Okay. Concepts including trade job versus a regular job contract and how to identify those. And then also quoting versus bidding. There's a lot of misinterpretation as far as the state's interpretation on that. And then how to legally use Choice Partners job contract. I'm going to tell you about 99.9% of everything I tell you today applies to any and all job contracts, not just Choice Partners job contracts. So please understand, a lot of what I'm telling you is not specific to Choice Partners. If you're using your own in-house job, if you're using another cooperative's job, if you're following the law, all of this applies. Does that make sense? So why does legal compliance matter? Why does it matter? Besides the obvious, we just don't want to end up in orange jumpsuits, right? But here's the deal. For job order contracts, different procurement rules apply. It's not like procuring a commodity or a service, okay? Different procurement rules apply. Contracts not properly procured can be voided or unenforceable. Officials and officers who violate procurement statutes can be subject to criminal penalties. Remember, orange jumpsuits. Sometimes it means you got to go back in front of your board of directors and admit you made a mistake, which nobody likes to do. Public works contracts may trigger things such as bonding or prevailing wage requirements, right? Do we have that in maintenance or in our commodity contracts? No. And then legal mistakes can delay your projects, jeopardize your budgets, and result in cost overruns. And I'll give you an example of that here in a moment. And subject you as the governmental entity to financial liabilities to vendors, subcontractors, subcontractors, and suppliers. Make sense? Now that I've scared you, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, to understand, I typically get brought in reactively. People contact me, I go and help after there's a problem or a screw up or it's going to go to court. And so a lot of the stories I tell you today, they're actually true. I won't tell you the entity, but these are things that I've worked with. So why job order contracting? And for my viewers, I guess online, please understand, if you're outside of the state of Texas, this may or may not apply to you. The majority of the people that registered for this event today are in Texas. I'm going to focus on Texas statute. If you're outside of Texas, I recommend that you follow your own statutes, okay? Specifically, if you're in Arizona, your statutes are very, very different. So if you're in Arizona, please make sure you're following your own state statutes. But for here in Texas, time and materials is not permissible if providing construction services. And how do we know that? Well, depending on which governmental entity you are, you know, if you're a school district, it's Texas Education Code 44, Section 031. If you're cities or a county, it's Texas Government Code 252, 262, 271. If you're a university, it's Texas Education Code 51, so on and so forth. But here's the deal. Everyone in Texas, with the exception of universities, is directed to Texas Government Code 2269 if procuring construction services. Does that make sense? Okay. In Texas Government Code 2269, There is not a time and material procurement option. Okay? What they have is construction delivery methods, and they tell you how to procure each delivery method. The only one allowed to be used in a co-op in Texas is job order contracting. And the reason why that is that every other delivery method requires the project-specific scope of work at the time of advertisement. Does that make sense? Since a co-op does not know project-specific scope of work, and it would not behoove them to do any and everyone's project-specific bids, the only one they should be using is job order contracting. Okay? This is the only contracting method for construction services that allows you to select contractors for future projects. IDIQ, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity. And what does that mean? That means that your entity knows they're going to need some construction services in the future. They don't know when, they don't know how much, but they know that when they need it, they ain't today, tomorrow, next week, next month. They may not have time to do that 4 to 6 month bidding process, right? That's what this is intended for. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, and I'll stop and repeat the question for the live audience and then answer it. So what is job order contracting? This applies to everybody but universities. My universities, your definition is almost exactly the same, but it does not have the word maintenance in it, okay? And it's basically a procurement method used for maintenance, repair, alteration, renovation, remediation, or minor construction. Minor construction, okay? This is not defined in statute. What's minor for you may be major for somebody else, okay? This is an internal decision within your organization as to what's minor. I will tell you it's not new construction, okay? If you've got a bond program and you're building new buildings, you should not be using job order contracting. Does that make sense? I can tell you some of our larger school districts, some of our universities, they'll do 4 to 8 million or more. I can tell you a lot of our smaller school districts, they want to cap it at 300,000. Okay, so it depends on your entity and their size and your legal department's interpretation of what's minor. When the work is of a reoccurring nature, but the delivery times, types, and quantities of work required are indefinite. And that's that IDIQ piece that I already discussed. Okay, so I'm going to cover maintenance versus construction and factors to consider. And this is why this is important, okay? If I'm doing maintenance, I don't need prevailing wages. I don't need bonding. Engineering and architectural services don't apply, right? My rules are different. Who here thinks that every time a contractor gives you a quote for a construction service on a cooperative that they actually have a construction contract? Oh, come on, don't be shy. Nobody wants to raise their hand on that? Here's the deal. Most salespeople know that they've got a cooperative contract. They've never read it. They don't know what it covers. They can give you a quote and they can physically do it in-house, but legally, according to that contract, they may or may not be able to do it. Make sense? Not all cooperative contracts are written as construction contracts. Some of them are time and material maintenance contracts and should only be used for that purpose. Okay? Factors to consider. And if you notice at my slides, if you cannot read this, they will be available on the Choice Partners website. You just go to choicepartners.org, click on the About Us tab, go down to presentations and click that, find today's presentation. Joanne will be uploading the PowerPoint if she hasn't already. And then typically 24 to 48 hours later, we will upload a link to this video as well on our YouTube account, okay? It usually takes about a day to render, another day to edit and re-render, but we should have that up within about 48 hours. So like for like, and this is the most misunderstood term I hear in facilities. I've got a 300-ton train chiller. It's end of life. It's 25 years old. I'm going to replace it with another 300-ton train chiller. It's like for like. So it's not construction, right? I can use a time and material maintenance contract for that. Can I? Whoever said that's correct. The answer is no, okay? Here's the deal. The technology is not the same. The efficiency is not the same. The controls that run it aren't the same. You've got to bring it up to your current energy code. You've got to bring it up to your current building code. It's over $8,000 and it's mechanical or electrical in nature, so the state requires you to get it engineered. It's over $25,000, so you have to get a payment bond. It's over $100,000, you got to get a performance bond. Does that sound like for like maintenance? Absolutely not. The definition of maintenance is very narrow in Texas, and it's basically maintaining existing equipment in its like state. That's it, not upgrading it, not replacing it. If you notice, like for like was actually defined in an OSHA letter to Raymond Knob way back in 2003 as not new or upgraded. Okay, so a new AC unit is new and it's an upgrade and it's not like for like. The scale and complexity of the project and then the physical size of the object being worked on. And I'm going to pick on my roofers here, okay? Half a roof of a 10 by 10 shed that we're keeping our lawn equipment in. Shingle roof might be maintenance. You're using like for like, same shingles. Scale and complexity of the project is very small. Physical size of the object being worked on is very small. I mean, we're talking about what, 50 square feet? But I'm going to take that exact same example and apply it to a 500,000 square foot high school. Okay, my physical size is much greater. Now I've got roof penetrations I got to think about. I've got to mop in curbs. I have all kinds of gas lines and drainage lines running on that roof. It's likely over 20,000, so it requires an engineer to recertify it. My scale and complexity is now much greater. It falls under construction. Does that make sense? Y'all are looking at me like I'm crazy. I see some of you. Because of scale and complexity. This actually first got brought up on a bridge. A city was repainting a bridge to maintain it. Exact same color, same paint. And OSHA determined that it was construction because of the scale and complexity of the project, because it had fall arrest equipment, because they had to worry about overspray on vehicles and buildings surrounding the area. They determined that the scale and complexity was so great that it fell under construction requirements. That's where this started. Y'all are looking at me. Hopefully it's a little interesting. I have your attention. So that you understand, a JOC contract covers you for maintenance. A maintenance contract will not cover you for construction services. So JOC can cover the construction and the maintenance, but the maintenance cannot cover the construction. It doesn't go both ways. We learned this lesson very hard during Hurricane Harvey. Not we, me, or Choice Partners, but our community as a whole. When TDM came back and started auditing these contracts, they found that a lot of people use time and material contracts, and federal government does not like a time and material contract, especially if you did not establish a not to exceed price. They won't pay. That's right. So these time and material maintenance contracts that are on these cooperatives, they won't pay. That's right. Okay. They will allow you to do it. Very, very extenuating circumstances. It's basically you had no other option, and it's for the duration of the emergency only. And there is a not to exceed price attached to that contract prior to them going to work. And you showed that you monitored the entire thing. It is very complex and very hard to get your money back on that contract. Any questions so far? Have I scared y'all yet? No? All right, good. Okay, so jobs procured by purchasing cooperatives, okay? And the deal here is that you, the governmental entity, get to select a vendor without doing your own procurement, right? So the cooperative has already advertised it for 2 consecutive weeks, received the responses, unsealed them, evaluated them, brought them to their board for award recommendation, and then the board has approved that recommendation. From that point, all you have to do is reach out to them to obtain quotes, okay? You have to obtain one, but in Texas, you can obtain more than one. In fact, if you're using federal dollars, I highly recommend that you obtain at least 3 and that you attempt to get at least one of those from a minority-owned or woman-owned business. Does that make sense? Okay. Many of the federal grants that we've been working with since Hurricane Harvey, it started with FEMA. That was the first one that said they wanted 3 quotes. And their justification was to make sure that you meet the requirements of the 6 affirmative steps found in 2 CFR 200.321, maybe? I don't know. I think it's 321. But it's to show that you gave the minority-owned or woman-owned business an opportunity to quote your specific scope of work, okay? That's why that's there. What else? You can technically send it out 10 or 15. I can tell you most job contractors do not like that. When they show up for a job walk and they see 10 other guys there, half of them are going to walk off the job. That's just the nature of job order contracting. Job order contracting was actually developed in the military, and it was intended for you to grab one contractor, get a quote, and go straight to work. It wasn't initially designed to get multiple quotes where they feel like they're recompeting every time. State of Texas has interpreted that differently, which is why the quoting versus bidding that I'll discuss later is so important. But I can tell you that most of them are on board with 2 or 3 guys showing up, but you get 10 or 15, most of them will walk off. Does that make sense? This is the only method allowed, again, to select contractors for future undefined projects. Okay, so what is a job estimate? For those of you that have used job order contracting, I can almost guarantee, without ever of talking to you in the past, that a job estimate is where you grab a vendor on a co-op and you ask them to give you a proposal and they tell you what they're going to deliver to you with a lump sum total. But that's not actually a job estimate because state Texas says it must be substantially based on the contract named unit price book and their legally bid coefficient. Okay, so what must it contain? It needs to contain the contract number. Very rarely are we ever going to have true construction services under the $50,000 threshold that does not require a contract. The second issue with this is if they don't know what contract they're using to price it, are you getting the contract price? And the answer is no. And so what I see happen all the time is a facility guy reaches out to 3 vendors and he says, hey, can you do this work? And they say, uh-huh. And he says, great, give me a quote. They give him a quote. He gives it to purchasing. Purchasing says, hey, are they on a co-op? He goes back to that vendor and he says, yeah, I'm on this co-op and this co-op. He goes, just add 2% to my price and it's good. Job order contracting is not his off the street price plus 2%. That's not what they bid. He needs to go back and re-estimate that entire project using that price book and then his discount applied to that price book, which we call a coefficient. We've just wasted a lot of time. I can tell you that when I have to get them to go back and fix their estimates, very rarely do they fix them in the same week. Does that make sense? So that you understand, Choice Partners does offer some services. There's no fees associated with this to you or the vendor. Okay, so most co-ops, they charge the vendor for review services. You don't see that. That's just additional overhead on their end. There's none of that here. But basically, you or your vendor can send us the quote and we will review it for contract compliance. I'm going to show you exactly what it is we review here in a minute. But so you understand, we don't get into your scope of work and your quantities. But we do check every aspect that applies to our contract to ensure that it's followed. No fee. You do have to proactively request that though. Line item assessment based on the unit price books. Choice Partners names 4 price books, okay? They have RS Means. They have Craftsman National Construction Cost Estimator. They have Xactimate in case you're working on a typically like an insurance claim, sometimes FEMA. And then Sierra West for those of you out in California. I know K through 12 out in California requires it. We have Sierra West as well. Subcontractor pricing must also follow the unit price book. And so here's what I've seen a lot of, and I'm gonna pick on my roofers again. They're replacing a roof, but there's a little bit of plumbing, maybe a little bit of electrical. And so they'll line item out all the roofing line items. And then they'll say electrical subcontractor, 50,000, plumbing subcontractor, 75,000. Miscellaneous. It's not allowed. Unit price book has line items for electrical and plumbing. Those are, and RS Means exactly. They are not non-pre-priced line items. They need to go back and line item out those too. It doesn't matter who provides it. If they do it in-house or it's subcontracted, everything follows the unit price book. Okay? What? So yes, the pricing is available in the Choice Partners due diligence folder. But what you have to understand is that's the contractor's name and their legally bid coefficient. That's what you bid on a job contract, right? So there's still a lot of other things that you have to check and verify. It does not show you what the subcontractors are doing. The subcontractors need to charge what they're charging or less. And that's between them to negotiate. Yes. Jock IDIQ estimate. This is an example of what one could or should look like. Let me see if I can make this larger. It's still going to be hard to read, but as I said before, we do have this presentation online where you can see it. A couple of things. I'm going to try to highlight this. Y'all can see it. My people on, what is it? Left side, y'all can probably see the green. Okay. First thing is I've got that contract number. Next thing is I've got a data release. Choice Partners is going to look at that and verify that they're using the most current release. If you look at this example, it says 2019 Q2. If this was sent to Choice Partners, we'd say, you need to update this to 2022 Q1. Make sense? They should give you the quantity of the line item. How many of each one they're going to use? What? Lunch? 5 minutes? Okay. All right. Let me finish this estimate and then we'll break for lunch, okay? Or a bio break. Line item number, that's a 12-digit number. It follows CSI master format. You can request access to the unit price book they're using, type that 12-digit number in, and verify if they've manipulated that line item in any way. Choice Partners also does a verification if you send it to us, but we do not check every line item. We check roughly 10%, and it's typically your higher dollar valued line items, okay? There's a description. This tells you what's included in that line item. Anything not in that description is an additional line item, okay? Your unit of measure, and then you have total OMP and extended total OMP. So that you understand for RS Means, Choice Partners specified right-hand means. And what that means is we specified the far right-hand column in RS Means, which includes overhead and profit. Anytime they're using RS means with a choice partners contract, you should never see additional lines for overhead or profit. It's already included. If it's a line item. But I typically don't see that. So so the thing that was brought up was fuel surcharges. Here's the deal. Every JOC contract has a definition of coefficient in it, and it tells you what is and is not included. Choice Partners allows the use of Division I, but we restrict that use. We tell them that site supervision, project management, final site cleanup by GC, overhead items, office expenses, cell phones, trucks are all included in their coefficient. So you really should not see an additional line item for those items. And we check those items when you send it to us to make sure that they're not used. Now, I will tell you, there are times when you may need to approve their usage anyways. If you're requiring like a dedicated on-site safety guy, and that's not customary for that type of project, then they can charge for the additional. Yes, yes, but you have to approve that. They shouldn't just charge it to you without your approval. Okay. Labor type. The big thing here is I'm looking, when we review these in-house, we're looking for the word user. User lets me know they've changed something in that line item. They've manipulated it in some way. It may be that they just changed the description, which they should not do. Anything that needs to be changed in the description, they need to put in the notes section. Okay. But it may mean that they changed the pricing. Okay. When I see user, that's a red flag to go digging and figure out what they changed. After that, I've got the city cost index. What is that? So you understand these unit price books are based on a national average. Okay. We then select the city cost index for our area to increase or decrease that unit price book to get localized pricing. Okay. It's based on the first 3 digits of the zip code. So this one says Texas, Houston, 770 to 772. Please understand, it doesn't really matter what city is listed here as long as these first 3 digits match, okay? And here's my example. RS mean says Galveston 775. But I know that LaPorte 775. I know that Baytown is 775. So it doesn't really matter that it says Galveston. They don't have every city listed. That covers anyone within those first 3 digits, okay? And then when you got the note section, that note section can be used if they're providing a line item that's similar but not exact, and they can tell you exactly what it is they're providing you. It can be used for them to show you their calculations. Let's say it's painting and it's a 10 by 10 wall and you want 3 coats, okay? So I say 10 by 10 equals 100 square feet times 3 coats, 300 square feet. And they can show you that calculation. It can also be used on your federal contracts to show the location of where these line items are being used. When we're dealing with FEMA, a lot of times they want a percent breakdown. So that line item might say 70% high school, 20% chiller yard, 10% field house, or it might say 10% hallway A, 10% hallway B, 30% hallway C. They want that area breakdown, and you provide all of that in that note section, okay? After that, we get a subtotal down at the bottom, and they should apply their legally bid coefficient. So that you understand what a coefficient is, it's based on a 1.0, okay? So 1 times the pricing in the unit price book equals the pricing in the price book. So $5 plug times 1 is a $5 plug. If they're going to give you a 10% discount, they're going to bid a 0.90. Does that make sense? So 10% off is a 0.90 coefficient. A 1.10 is a 10% increase. So it's basically the opposite of a discount. But when they take their number and they multiply it by that 0.90, it automatically takes the 10% off. After that, they can give you an additional discount. Job order contracts are not to exceed. You can negotiate. Does that make sense? It's not written in stone. I will tell you, not everybody will negotiate, especially in this market, but you can. It is allowed. After that, we recommend that they add their permitting, bonding, pass-through costs at the end of the estimate. The software does allow them to add it throughout the estimate, but then your coefficient gets applied to it. And since those are pass-through costs and they should not be marked up in any way, when they add it to the estimate, there's overhead and profit and all kinds of other stuff tacked on. We train our vendors to add it at the end so that you pay exactly what they're paying. And then you get your total project quote. Any questions? Y'all are really quiet. I need to wake y'all up, huh? All right, I did just finish that estimate, so I am going to go ahead and take 5 or 10 minutes to grab lunch, take a bio break. For those online, we will be back, I promise you, in about 5 or 10 minutes. How long do y'all want to take? Okay. So for my online people, I have 11:42 right now. We will come back here around 11:52. All right, thank you. Hi, welcome back, everyone. To my online viewers, thank you for sticking with me. All right, let me get back on quote track.
Antoinette, this is Linda.
If
You got a minute?
remember, I stated that Choice
Okay,
Partners
there
will
is
review
a
the quote for you.
situation at
Okay?
Mount Houston.
Whether you're reviewing
I
it
just got
or
off
we're
the phone with
reviewing it,
Sandra,
these are
and
the
gave her
things
some
that I
recommendations.
check
There's a
whenever I'm
homeless
running my own job
Antoinette,
projects here
you're
at
not on
that
Expo.
has
mute.
been there for
Okay?
a couple of days.
First thing is city
And,
cost index location. Are they giving me national average pricing or are they giving me my local pricing? The coefficient, did they apply it? That is literally the only thing they legally bid. Without it, you're not getting legally bid pricing. That makes sense? Overhead and profit pricing column, if they're using RS means, I check to make sure they're using that column. The other 3 price books do not have an overhead and profit pricing column. So that overhead and profit should be shown in their coefficient, okay? So an example is a 0.9 coefficient in RS means is closer to a 1.2 coefficient in craft.
No.
Okay. I checked that the data release is the most recent. I showed you that example where we had one that was
Back
out
or
of
front?
date. Non-pre-priced line items,
Okay,
so that you understand.
okay. Yeah, no.
Unit
let's get
price
the
books
security
cover
guard and
roughly
keep me
80% of all the
posted.
line items you may
All
need
right,
to
thank you.
use.
Bye-bye.
What happens when you need that other 20%? You need something truly custom to you, okay? Our contract, I want to tell you, I believe, is section 6.3 or about, has language for non-pre-priced line items. And it gives 2 choices. It basically says that y'all deemed it a sole source and they fill out a sole source affidavit and you're going to run it as a sole source. The second option is that they get 3 quotes and add the overhead and profit that they bid to us. So we ask them to bid a percentage for non-pre-priced line items. They're only allowed to add that percentage bid moving forwards. They don't get to make it up based on market conditions. That's bid. I can tell you, state of Texas says that the estimate is supposed to be substantially based on the unit price book. So I cannot run the majority of the line items in my estimate as non-pre-priced. I need at least 51% or more pre-priced out of the book. Okay. There's many entities that I've worked with. They don't allow more than 10% or 25% to be non-pre-priced. That's something that you want to watch out for. Attempts to pass through the cooperative fee. I don't know that there's a cooperative out there whose job contract I have not read. And I can tell you that there's not a single one out there that allows them to pass the cooperative fee on to you. That's included in that coefficient. That's an overhead expense. It should never be an additional line item on your estimate. If it is, you're paying for it twice. Make sense? The use of Division 1 As I stated, in our contracts, we allow Division 1, but we restrict it. We will check to make sure that they only use the line items that were not restricted. This varies per contract if you're using other contracts outside of Choice Partners, okay? Some people do not restrict the use of Division 1 at all. Others restrict it 100%, okay? This varies. And then adjustment factors. And basically what that means is the price book allows you to increase or decrease the cost based on working conditions. So you can increase the cost if they're working in a confined space or they're working in an occupied building. What we do is we identify these for you and bring them to your attention. It's up to you to determine if they're applicable to your project or if that contractor is just trying to build up their estimate. Jeff showed y'all this earlier briefly. I'm going to go over this graphic in more depth because it's different for job order contracts. So that you understand, Choice Partners is actually Harris County Department of Education. We are a governmental entity, okay? We don't have lead agencies. We're not a for-profit entity with lead agencies. We are government. And you, as our members, signed an interlocal agreement per Texas Government Code 791 that states that we can share each other's contracts. That's it. Choice Partners then goes out to bid products and services that y'all need and want. And we award the ones that are deemed highly qualified, okay? We follow the same scoring criteria that you do. So depending on, under Texas Government Code 2269, it says you may consider, and then it tells you all the things that you may consider. We include all those. We include price. We include experience and reputation. We review their safety record, all the different requirements in statute. They're in our contract. You can find it roughly around section 4.21 or 4.22, depending on which template that contract utilized. Okay. We take it to our board and we award that contract. Not everyone gets a contract. Okay. Historically, at least on the jock side, we award roughly 50% of respondents, sometimes less, sometimes a little more, definitely not everyone. But this goes back to that question that was asked earlier. For my people online, I'm looking between the Choice Partners member and the CP awarded vendor. Remember how I said earlier that the cooperative does the contract for anyone and everyone. They didn't do it for you specifically. They're hoping you'll use it, but they don't know all of your terms and conditions, okay? You should always, in job order contracting, have a supplemental agreement, always. I'll go over more in detail what that includes, but that should include anything specific to your entity, the actual scope of work itself, what constitutes a notice to proceed, what constitutes substantial completion and final completion. All those details specific to your project. We don't have them in our contract. You need that supplemental agreement, okay? Both parties need to sign it. That's a part of statute, depending on which statutes you follow. For the majority of you, it's in Texas Government Code 2269, section 410, okay? Universities, I know it's in Texas Education Code 51, but I don't remember the exact subchapter. Which goes to my next point, use a master job order contract, okay? This contains the governmental entity's project-specific scope of work. It should include your prevailing wages as an attachment. What happens, and I know this happens, in fact, I've done it in a former life, but what happens when your facility guy calls them out and says, hey, give me a quote, and never gives them the prevailing wage schedule, and you'll issue a PO, and they go to work, and halfway through the project, a disgruntled employee finds out they're not being paid the prevailing wage. A lawsuit. What happens is The school district basically stands in place of the surety, and they're responsible for paying the difference in what the contractor's paying and their prevailing wage schedule because they failed to provide it to the contractor and subcontractors. But your contract is with the contractor, so the contractor should pass that down to the subcontractors. He's on the hook for that. But yes, you are responsible for the difference if you fail to provide it. I have this in all of my master jock agreements. I make them sign it once a year, and I give them the prevailing wage schedule, and they have to sign showing that they received it. And I do that annually. You can do it every project if you want, but I do mine annually. Okay, liquidated damages. If you're going to have liquidated damages, you need that in your contract. Cooperative contracts, none of them cover that. Retainage, if you're going to hold retainage. Terms and conditions specific to your entity. And then again, I have referenced that statute right there, and it was 2269, section 410, which states that both parties must sign it. Okay, the PO and the proposal, actually, this went to court, and the school district's argument was that the PO and the proposal became one document, okay? The judge stated that the proposal was a single document signed by one party, and the PO was a separate document signed by the other party, but that there was not a single document that had both party signatures agreeing to the same terms and conditions. And the issue was that the proposal had contradicting terms and conditions to the district's PO. And the district said, well, our PO overrides it. And the judge said, no, because under law, both parties have to agree to it. And they lost that case. The job order, again, owner signed, owner issued, signed by both parties, states your scope of work and your prevailing wages. All right, bonding. In construction, we have, the law requires when we have to use bonds, right? If you're using a performance bond, it's required if the contract is in excess of $100,000, okay? If it's a payment bond and the contract's in excess of $25,000 and you are not a municipality or joint board, you must get a payment bond. Okay, if you are a municipality or joint board, then your threshold is $50,000 when you need to get a payment bond. Okay. If you fail to get the bond, what happens? Who knows? You know? Okay. So real quick, remember how I talked about the importance of maintenance versus construction? Historically, governmental entities think of construction as new construction. They think of construction as projects that came out of their construction department. We had a school district many years ago when all the school districts went to that BYOD initiative, bring your own device, and they updated all of their cabling and networking infrastructure. Subcontractor did not get paid, and they went back to that school district and asked for their payment bond. School district said, we don't have to get a payment bond. That's an IT project. That's not a construction project. It went to court. And the judge said, you're upgrading your system. It's large in scale and complexity because you did it district-wide. Physical size of the project is huge because some of your buildings are well over 500,000 square feet. You did perform construction. You should have gotten that payment bond. And because you did it, you are now responsible for paying that subcontractor. They had to go back to their board and explain that because they failed to get that payment bond, they were going to have to pay for that project twice. So that's one of the reasons why making that determination up front is so important. Now, let me ask you this. Who in your organization is responsible for determining if it's maintenance or construction and verifying that the contract covers that? When I go out to school districts and I ask purchasing, they say, Well, Stephen, we're purchasing people. We're not the maintenance and construction professional. They should make that determination. Say, okay. And then I talk to the construction folks. It's real fun when they're both in the same room when I'm training. I say, guys, who makes that decision? They say, look, man, I just want a PO. They tell me I got to get 3 quotes. I get 3 quotes. I give it to them. It is their job to determine if the right contract's being used or not. I'm not the purchasing professional. And then what I find out happens is nobody's checking it. Okay. If you haven't had that conversation in your organization, you should. You should decide who's going to be checking that, who's going to be making those decisions and providing that oversight. It has been a major, major problem, especially when using federal funds. It is something that is very commonly found in audits. Okay. Yeah. Oh. So the question is, do I make them bond a percentage of the project or do I require them to bond the whole project? We bond the whole project. If they default and go out of business, like happened to us back in 2008, actually happened to me. Luckily, I had that performance bond and it covered everything. Yep. We did the total amount. Yes. Yeah. We do total amount.
Is there anything in black and white that we can refer to support that?
Not that I'm aware of. So her question is from online viewers, is there anything that's black and white in writing that states 100% coverage or a percentage coverage? Not that I'm aware of, but I can look more into that and get back to you. Yeah. But we do 100%. So jocks and using an architect or an engineer, I'm going to tell you, the first misconception is, well, it's a jock and I work with that jock to create the scope of work. And so no architect or engineer is required. And I see it every day, every day. That's not true. That general contractor can work with you to help you develop it. But there are dollar thresholds where it kicks in the requirement to get that professional architect or engineer. And here's the deal. It cannot be procured through your jock contractor. Texas Government Code 791 excludes architectural and engineering services from being procured through an interlocal agreement. What's an interlocal agreement? Well, in our case, it's a cooperative agreement, okay? You cannot pay the general contractor to go hire the engineer for you. You must procure that separately following the RFQ process stated in Texas Occupation Code 1001 for engineers or 1051 for architects. I've referenced all that here, actually. I just went through it. But when's an architect required? If it's a new building exceeding $100,000, an architect's required. If it's a remodel, renovation, something like that, and it exceeds $50,000, an architect's required. Engineering is written as an exception, okay? They say if it is mechanical or electrical and is $8,000 or less, engineering is not required, okay? So over 8,000, you have, and it's mechanical or electrical in nature, you must get an engineer. If it's not mechanical or electrical and it exceeds 20,000, you have to get an engineer, okay? I like to mention here that the state of Texas does not allow civil construction projects through job order contracts, okay? Civil engineers have a very powerful lobby in Austin, and they excluded civil projects from job order contracting. I heard that. what else was I going to say here? Can't procure it through the contract. You need to procure it as a separate third party, okay? I see this probably more than anything. Either failure to get that line item estimate with that coefficient or failure to get that architect or engineer. Why is that so important? Have any of y'all ever been in the older style gymnasiums that had the AC units hanging from the roofs? I see some heads nodding. And those AC units cost well over $8,000. And one time a school district replaced one of those AC units with a new AC unit, and they used the same mounting bracket welded to the structure from the old unit. And it was not rated for the weight of the new unit, and it fell. It did not hit or harm a student, but it is one of the main reasons why they were able to get these dollar thresholds so low on these types of projects. And it's for public safety. So what must go to your board, okay? Determination of the construction services project delivery method, okay? Most of you have a policy that says it's low bid, lowest responsible bidder. Some of you have local policy that's changed that to competitive sealed proposal. I don't know what your entity requires, but what I can tell you is that when you change the delivery method from what's defined in policy, you're supposed to go back to the board for approval, okay? What I do is I look at my budget and I see how much I spent last year and which vendors I used and which cooperatives. And under CH local or CV local and CH local, I take it to my board at the beginning of my budget year and get approval to use all those contractors under those cooperatives with not to exceed amounts, okay? Then when I have a real emergency, I don't have to go get permission to use job order contracting. I've already got it in place and I'm going to use it. And there's only one caveat, and that caveat is this. They make me go back to the board if I exceed $75,000, okay? So they give me up to $75,000. Texas says you do not have to go back to the board unless the job order exceeds $500,000. But my governmental entity put in a local policy that restricted that further. Does that make sense? So your dollar threshold is whatever your policy states. And I just covered the last line item without even realizing it. Last bullet, job orders, including cooperative purchases in excess of 500,000 must go back to your board or governing body or whoever has delegated authority to sign. So trade jock versus jock. The state of Texas defined maintenance so narrowly that what happened is we started seeing trade jock contracts, okay? So originally construction was thought of as your general contractor, and your time and material contracts were thought of as your single trade contractors. Now, construction is construction no matter who's performing it, okay? So you will see Choice Partners, there's a few other co-ops doing it, especially the ones in Texas. We offer trade jock, okay? This allows the use of a single division, maybe 3 divisions, depending on how they wrote it. If they wrote it as an MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, then it'd be divisions 22, 23, and 26. I know for most of you that doesn't mean anything, but to understand, the price book has divisions for each type of construction. So 26 is defined as electrical, and 23 is defined as HVAC. Okay. This is for when multiple trades are not needed and you do not want to pay the overhead of a general contractor. That's the intent. But they can only work in the division they're awarded, not any and all divisions in the price book. Okay. Typically on Choice Partners website, you know that it's a trade contract because it lists the trade and then says jock, like painting, jock, HVAC, jock, okay? A full-blown jock contract is your general contractor. They can do anything and everything with the exception of civil projects. Okay? They are not restricted. I had another thing I was going to say and I lost my thought. It'll probably come to me after y'all leave. But that allows for you to use anything and everything under one umbrella. Okay? The benefit to the trade jock is you reduce your overhead expenses. The downside to it is they can only do what they're awarded for. Oh, choice partners jocks are list. Go ahead.
Can you use the trade job alone? Does it always have to be with the job?
Can you use a trade jock alone? Yes, it is a standalone contract. So if you are doing LED lights,
Yeah.
you could go to electrical trade jock and just hire them to do all of your LED upgrades. Okay, but if you're doing some LED upgrades, some roofing upgrades, some HVAC upgrades, then you might want to go with the general contractor. But that's a personal decision. Y'all might decide to use 3 different trades. Okay. Regular jock contracts on the Choice Partners website are listed as construction jock. If it doesn't have a specific trade next to it, it covers everything. If it does have a specific trade to it, it only covers that trade. So the bid or proposal. Remember how I said that jock was designed in the military at the federal level and that it was really intended to grab a single quote from a single contractor and run with the project. That's not true in Texas. In Texas, they say that the bid or proposal is the formal, written, sealed response that was evaluated and taken to the board. It is the coefficient against the unit price book with no scope of work. Okay. The quote is the job specific pricing in writing based on your scope of work using the pricing they bid, which is that coefficient. You have to get one, you can get more than one. And here's why this is important. Because if you do not know this or realize this, you will have jocks tell you, you can't recompete me. You can't rebid me. That's illegal. I've already been bid. If you're making them recompete their coefficients, they're absolutely correct. If you're asking them to give you a quote based on what they bid, you can do that all day long with as many contractors as you want. I don't consider that a best practice. I typically try to stay 3 or under myself out of respect for them because I want that good working relationship. I want them to come out and bid my jobs when I call them. They walk off my job 2 or 3 times because I invited 10 guys, they're not going to come back. And then I've got a problem. If I call them out for things like budgetary numbers and I don't tell them up front, they're not coming out next time I call them. Make sense? So I always clearly communicate my intentions with them and I try to be respectful of how many I invite. Some final thoughts, and then I'll open it up to questions. But make sure that somebody is establishing that procurement method with that contractor at the time you're requesting the quote. Okay? If you're not telling them what contract you're using, you're not getting contract pricing. Include the contract number on the quote and PO. That covers your audit trail. Super, super important anytime you're using federal funds. Verify the pricing by requesting their line item estimate. I will not take a quote from a vendor unless that's included. It gets thrown out. Either that or I have to go back and ask for it, and then my project's delayed. It is a requirement. It is not a negotiable. If utilizing a co-op, and this is true of most co-ops, if y'all work with other co-ops, then you know this. They want to receive that confirming copy of each PO. Not all coefficients are created equal. So I talked about the coefficient, right? And I told you that every contract has its own definition of what is or is not included. Here's my example. I actually did have a chiller replacement at one of my school districts. I got 3 quotes from 3 vendors on 3 different cooperatives. Okay, exact same scope of work, exact same price book for all 3. But my guy with the lowest coefficient was the highest by $100,000. And the reason why was because the guy that bid the lowest coefficient, the contract did not restrict the use of Division 1 or prohibit the use of Division 1. So he did what they call in the industry is Division 1 the hell out of them. It was allowed in that contract. And he took advantage of it. He was selling his coefficient because he knew that he thought the client wasn't smart enough to understand that they weren't all equal. That's another reason why you may want to get multiple quotes, because every coefficient on every contract is different. And if you're not going to read every contract to know what is and is not included, you're not going to know.
I was just gonna say, so it is broken down in the contract. of what
Yes.
they've included in that coefficient, so
Yes.
that you can make a better choice on who to go with.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. There should be a definition section, and coefficient should be one of those definitions. It should say what is or is not included. Some co-ops hide it in their pricing section. So it's not in the definition section, it's down further in their pricing section, but it is usually defined. If there's no restrictions in there, they can do anything and everything. Yep. Most universities do not allow the use of Division 1. It was so abused, they don't allow it. Not all co-ops are created equal. Not all of them are federally compliant. And I can almost promise you that if they're outside of the state of Texas, they're not compliant. And we learned this big time during Hurricane Harvey. What happened was FEMA issued white papers. And at first they said, you cannot use a cooperative outside the state of Texas. And then all those co-ops said, whoa, 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 you can't discriminate based on location. That's a part of your own statutes. Well, they went back and revised it, and they issued a second white paper, and they said this. They said the cooperative contract must follow federal, state, and local law. They can be anywhere as long as they follow the state of Texas law if the funds are being used in Texas. Does that make sense? The odds that an out-of-state cooperative are following Texas law on job order contracting is very, very slim, because state of Texas and the state of Arizona, we both decided we wanted to do things very differently. Okay? Just as a heads up. And then always remember, get that governing body approval if required. I have one last slide. If you heard nothing else today, all right, hear this. The foregoing presentation was created by Harris County Department of Education. The presentation is intended to be used solely for general information purposes and is not to be regarded as legal advice. Please, if you have legal questions, please consult your own attorneys.
They don't have answers.
I know. Well, look. I'll, if you call me, if y'all call me, I will tell you my opinion or what I would do, but it is not a legal opinion. You still have to make your own decision, and you're responsible for that decision. Well, sometimes that's the most current, right? Sometimes things are based on case law. There's a case law involving Jock that goes back to 2005. So yeah, sometimes they do go way far back, but it's the most current. Do I have any questions? No? Yeah. Uh-huh.
So is that different from the quote that Choice Partners spits out for all the other contracts? Is it different for the job?
So she asked if the quote for job order contracting looks different than all other contracts.
Is it 48 hours for them to get back to the quote?
To get a quote. You're talking about the get a quote function?
To get a quote function, to give them my scope of work, and then I want them to respond to me. Does that look the same?
It looks the same when you fill out the form. Okay. What's going to be different is they're likely not going to be able to get you that quote in 48 hours. What they should do is get back to you and let you know if set up a time to come walk the job or find out when that walk is scheduled for. They likely won't have the actual quote in 48 hours, but they should make contact with you, let you know if they can or cannot take on the job, and start the next steps. Any other questions? No? Any questions online? Online is good? All right. For those of you that have stayed, we do have, what is that, a QR code for a survey. Let us know what we did good. Let us know what we did bad. Give us suggestions for improvement. And thank y'all. Hopefully I made it as engaging as possible. I try to be animated because I know it's very dry. All right, and then we have some contact information. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff just to wrap things up. To the QR code. There you go.
All right. All right, I'm going to wrap it up, and it should be literally a minute or two, just a couple of minutes. Yeah, if you would, please make sure that you look at that QR code. Comments we want and really analyze and take to heart. Comments, anything. We're all big boys and girls. Please, if there's things you're saying, I really would have liked this or this or this. That's how we get better, is by feedback, by comments, by knowing what you guys like and what you guys did. And we think we know everything, but we don't. So I guess this is a sandwich approach. I'm the bread on the outside, and then you got all the good meat and cheese and all that with Stephen and Joanne and Christy and all that. They gave you all the good stuff. You stuck with me to end it here again. And so I just want to throw a few little things out. I know we have a lot of folks in here. We've got a couple of events coming up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I know there were a ton of folks in the Metroplex at Grapevine Convention Center, May 4th. I think we'll have, we've already got a number. We're going to have about 10 or 12 vendors that will be participating, and it's going to be another similar to this member workshop, but it's going to be live, so we can actually talk and visit. You can talk to some of our vendors and things like that. Be the same type format. We'll tell you about choice. We'll let the vendors talk for a few minutes, and we'll have same breakfast, lunch type format, CEUs, things like that. So, cities, counties, colleges, ISDs, Choice Partners members in and around Dallas-Fort Worth, just save that date, May 4th. And then here in the Houston area, we'll have a hurricane and disaster preparedness. I know if and this goes for our friends in Florida and along the coast, and anywhere there might have been a tornado or any of this type stuff. What do you do to prepare for disasters? We have a lot of vendors that not only do a lot of that disaster mitigation, but they do a lot of consulting, and they help you know what they call it. What do you do on blue sky days? How do you prepare so when it comes, you're not just running around like a chicken with your head cut off? And we've got a lot of clients that are using these services from New York to the East Coast to obviously the Florida area to the Texas area. It's not just Houston and the Gulf Coast. So we'll have that. That will be here south of Houston, probably down in the Kemah area. We're thinking it'll probably be like at a Landry's or something like that. We'll do the same type format. That'll be May 10th. So anyway, just those two things. I hope between Stephen and Joanne, in between our horse rides and things like that. No, seriously, she is sitting on top of a horse like 7 days a week, riding them and exercising them and things like that. And, so she wasn't just making a joke. And all the rest of our team. We only exist to try and help you guys out. We hope that you cherish our contracts. You think we do a good job. We're legal compliant. We use our own contracts. And we'd love to have feedback. We'd love you to kind of use and abuse it. So thank you for your time. Thank you for attending in person and virtual. And we hope to see or talk to a lot of you folks in the near future. Thank you.